So we'll do the best we can with the tools that we've got and go forth and do great things. All right, then. It is 5 after. Let's do this. Good evening, everyone, to session 7 of the engagement room. My name is Tim Scarborough. I am so happy that you're here, especially because of the distinguished speaker that we have tonight. Retired Major Yolandea Wood, graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and a premium aviator in her career, is our speaker tonight. And she's going to be speaking about something that I have always known is very dear to her heart, and that are the Tuskegee Airmen. She's going to be telling us stories tonight. She's going to be giving heraldry information. She's going to talk about how she's been touched personally by the efforts and the accomplishments and the honors bestowed upon those courageous airmen back in World War II. They were essential to the fight against the Axis powers. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear. And I've been wanting to hear a really long, drawn out presentation from Yolandea about this. So that was one of the reasons why I wink, I actually, encourage her to do this. So you're going to get a fantastic show from a local expert. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage Yolandea Wood.
Round of applause, round of applause. Thank you very much for that introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for those claps. My name, as he said, was Major Yolandea Wood, United States Air Force retired. I'm a master navigator. I graduated in the 6th class of women. We are just now having 50 years of women graduating from the Air Force Academy. The history of the Tuskegee Airmen and of myself is relatively new. And most people who know anything about the Tuskegee Airmen say, oh, I saw the HBO movie. They may not know it took 10 years to produce, and it did include the original picture of an original Tuskegee Airman in one of the shots of graduation. But who in the world are the Tuskegee Airmen, and why were they called the Red Tails? At the Air Force Academy, I returned to become a history professor, so I like quizzes. So ladies and gentlemen, let's start with a quiz. It's trick questions, I'll warn you right now. Did an enlisted? Civilian? Did the Tuskegee Airmen include Caucasians? Did it include women? And blacks and whites? Internationals were trained at Tuskegee. They had a detachment of Haitians that were trained there. And the Tuskegee Airmen were trained throughout the United States. And they actually flew bombers, never in combat, but that was a story for another day. So the first thing we have to understand is the Tuskegee Airmen look just like you if you fall into any of those categories. Were you military, civilian, black, white, men, women? You could have been a Tuskegee Airman if you had the tenacity to do what the Tuskegee Airmen did. Their legacy is relevant, and I'm going to repeat that numerous times. Their legacy is relevant. I want to tell you enough about them that you want to tell your kids and your neighbors, whatever their age, who the Tuskegee Airmen were. So let's get right to it. In World War II, I could go off and say they had 15,000 sorties. They amassed a certain amount of air medals. Those stats you won't remember. I hardly ever remember. They just kick butt. Let's just be real. They had a record. It is no longer truthful for me to say they never lost a bomber to enemy fighters. But even that we'll discuss later. But that is the fact that we need to change, the rumor, the myth. So why is their legacy relevant? The Tuskegee Airmen served in combat, and when they came home, they were fighting a double V, victory abroad and victory at home. The most notable Tuskegee Airman is Charles McGee. Charles McGee eventually would be awarded recognized as a brigadier general. If you watch football, you saw him at a Super Bowl flipping the coins a few years ago before he passed away when he was 100 years old. Charles McGee, who served with the Tuskegee Airmen, had over 100 combat missions in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. No one has matched his record of service for combat missions. Okay. He's not the only one. The gruesome twosome of Lee Archer and Wendell Pruitt also had distinction. Now, there is no recognized Black ace in World War II. The gruesome twosome actually had 4 kills apiece. And one day they shot down an airplane. They came down and said, hey, it was Lee. And they said, you know what? We want to be fair. And they gave each of them a half of a kill. So no recognized Black aces. After the war, in modern times, they finally said, okay, Lee, you can have the kill. And he was the only recognized Black ace. When the Tuskegee Airmen rose to prominence, they decided to look at video from their tail guns, and they said, oh, wait a minute, you don't have 4, you don't have 4.5, you don't have 5, you have proof of 3.5 kills. So there is no recognized Black ace. But I'm not really concerned about that. The job of the Tuskegee Airmen were to protect the bombers. And that's what they did. 1 out of 3 and 1 out of 4 bombers were shot down every mission in World War II. And every bomber represented 10 people not coming home. So having a Tuskegee Airman, a red tail protecting your bomber, gave you, your grandparents, a better chance of making it home. Right now, the number of bombers lost or credited is around 20 in all their missions. So the Tuskegee Airmen did an awesome job protecting bombers. They didn't get distracted trying to shoot down Germans and become stars. So in the military, the Tuskegee Airmen served with distinction. When they came home, the newly formed Air Force decided to have a gunnery competition, the first Top Gun. And no, Tom Cruise is not the first Top Gun. James Harvey and Harry Stewart in 1949 went as representatives for the 332nd Tuskegee Airmen Group to Las Vegas. And they, for the most part, almost swept their entire competition, and they weren't flying the latest airplanes. They got a 3-foot trophy, got a picture in front of it, told to go home. Soon thereafter, the Air Force decided to end segregation. So the 332nd was disbanded. One went here, I got your trophy. One went there, don't worry, I got your trophy. And that trophy was buried, secured for around 40 years. In addition, the Air Force Almanac said first place unknown. It took a historian 4 years to uncover that trophy, and it's now on display. Now, the Air Force has officially said, well, there's a reason for that. One, it was more about the airplanes being flown versus the people. So that's why we didn't make a big thing about it. And 2, they didn't have a place in all their museum to put the trophy of the first Top Gun. Do I look like I believe them? I don't. It is now on display at Wright-Patterson, or was. Hopefully it is still there. So the Tuskegee Airmen served after the war, showing their prowess in the first gunnery competition. But they also served in the community. My mogul in the media world on the East Coast. Having his ace status did not stop him from making an impact in media. So the Carper Casket Company. One of the things every community needs is a funeral home, because there's one destination that we'll always be going to. They started making caskets for funeral homes, and you could buy them on credit. I don't know how they were going to repossess them after they were in the ground. But because of their policy, they helped establish a lot of Black businesses. How do I know they're important? A few years before he passed away, here in St. Louis, they hosted a funeral convention right across from the convention center in a ballroom. The head table was the width of the ballroom, and George Carper was the man of the hour. Everyone came up to him because their business was built on the legacy and the business of George Carper. He had changed the entire industry. Tuskegee Airmen, their legacy is relevant. So you're like, okay, well, they're congressmen, they're politicians, they're business owners. Did they do anything else? Which Judge Robert Decatur was a judge. Here comes the judge. He taught at 6 different law schools. He was a probate judge. He made a difference in that courtroom and in those classrooms throughout his career. And some went on to become teachers. Gilbert A. Cargill was from Detroit. He became a professor at a high school. He influenced one of the members of my club, who now has his own nonprofit to help African American and minority students excel. He started a legacy, a snowball effect. Their legacy, their role model, changed history. So they served in the military. They served in business. They served in the community. Even women served. Nancy Lieutenant Cologne passed away at around 102. She was one impressive lady. She was in the nurses' corps. Women served as parachute packers, admin, nurses. Guys, you thought you could do it without us? You couldn't. We made a difference. In fact, one of them, named Carter, met his wife at Tuskegee. And they couldn't date because she was in civilian flight program and he was in military. So they dated while they were flying. In the air, they flirted on the radio. No privacy, but a lot of love. That's their examples. And I could list thousands of them because I was honored to meet them. I went to my first convention as a second lieutenant. And they were like, who are you? I'm the navigator. Do you know who we are? They made me buy a book. As a young lieutenant, I knew how to follow directions. That book is my #1 possession here. My God, this is not a request, but if my house burned out, that book is coming with me. Everything else can be replaced. It is signed by over 100 original Tuskegee Airmen. It's my prized possession. But you're going, Yolanda, I can't remember those stories. They're too difficult. They're too detailed. So I have 2 favorite stories to tell you. Mama's Rules and Watch Me. And this is interactive. I know I won't hear you, but I want to feel you. Did your mother ever tell you to clean your room? Did she mean now or later? Now? Don't lie. I will call your mother. And have you ever said, Mom, I can't do this? And she goes, honey, have you tried? Always, always try. And when do you do it? Now. One of the members of the Gruesome Twosome was Wendell Pruitt. Wendell Pruitt is from St. Louis. On the way home from one of his missions, he saw a ship as big as a football field. And he's remembered, his mama said, always, always try. And do it when? Now. He goes, but it's the way, I'm on the way home. I don't have any bombs. All I have is 50 caliber bullets, which are only about this big and this long. But mama said, always, always try and do it now. So he attacked that big ship with those itty bitty bullets. Do you know what happened? Now, this has got to be a story that I'm going to share, so it has to be good. He sunk it. How do you sink a big ship with an itty bitty bullet? The Germans didn't listen to their mamas. They left their ammunition on deck. One of those bullets hit all that ammunition on deck. What should have been a small boom became a very big boom. What became a small hole became a much bigger hole. And boats with holes sink. Because one man listened to his mama and one man didn't, history is made. That is the only time in history a ship was sunk by 50 caliber bullets. That was a Tuskegee Airman from St. Louis. Watch Me is my final story. Every time the Tuskegee Airmen faced opposition, their response through their actions, through their words, through their deeds was, watch me. The 1925, they came to a War Department and wrote a report. Blacks don't have the brain capacity to fly. They said, watch me. You can't find a location. They said, watch me. You can't find pilots that are qualified. They said, watch me. You can't find instructors who are qualified. They said, watch me. One lady got in an airplane with a black man and they said, ma'am, you can't fly with a black man. They called her husband at the White House. He was a smart husband, says, get out of my wife's way. Eleanor Roosevelt flew with Chief Anderson. She said, watch me. On one mission deep into Germany, where the bomber pilots were supposed to be escorted by another unit that never showed up, the Tuskegee Airmen were faced with a question. Do I protect these bombers all the way in? Or do I go home because my job that was assigned is done? And on that day, the Tuskegee Airmen said, watch me. There are a lot of slogans that you can use. That slogan, watch me, is the best. Can you become a distinguished Toastmaster? Watch me. Can you share this history? Watch me. Can you get promoted or clean your room? Watch me. If you want to continue the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen, 2 words. Apply them. Watch me.
Let's give our speaker a big round of applause. Thank you, Yolandea. That was fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to kind of open things up a little bit. I'm going to remove the pen. I am sorry to say that Facebook is not cooperating as far as I can see, so we may not have a full feed on the other side. So we're just going to do the best we can with what we got, being the speakers and leaders that we are, which is normal. We have to deal with these status quo things all the time. So now we're going to get into our Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm gonna allow all you guys to unmute yourself. If you got a question, let's who'd like to ask Yolandea the first question? Sandra? Yeah.
Why do we not hear more about these stories?
The Air Force and the military have a paradigm that says those people who are the tip of the spear get promoted, become our heroes. And so one of the reasons the Tuskegee Airmen weren't sent into combat is because if you're never sent into combat, you can never be successful. You're always on the backfield practicing. You never become a star. And so one of the ways to limit other people from excelling is saying, hey, Black folks haven't flown airplanes. If you don't know the story or share the story, when people say, little boy, you can't fly an airplane like Chief Anderson, he goes, wait a minute. If Chief Anderson, if Chappie James, and all these other people, Black, white, indigenous, can fly airplanes, I can too. They can see themselves in the reflection. And so I think that's one of the reasons why the story is not told, because there are some people who might believe it's a win-lose. If I tell about them, that takes away from me. And I believe that if I tell about this group and that group and that group, I provide a collection of role models that more people can make a link to. They're just scared.
I came up with 2 words that just stuck in my mind, and I'd like you to suggest a third one. Tenacity, discipline, and
I don't know if I would use dedication or responsibility. My favorite word is responsibility. It doesn't, individual responsibility is not based on what somebody else does. It's a realization that I must contribute, that I have a responsibility to do my part. And so I think I'm going to go with responsibility. The Tuskegee Airmen knew they had a responsibility to play an active role in the defense of this nation. And so that's what they did. And they excelled at it because they owned it.
thank you.
Yeah, this is Patty. Good evening, Yolandea. Are there any, going along with Sandra's question, are there any exhibits or, I don't want to say exhibits, are there any statues or memorials there in the St. Louis area regarding any of the Tuskegee
Amen.
airmen that you mentioned?
Yes, actually, you just missed a traveling display called Freedom Flyers at the Soldiers Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
The other museum had one dedicated to George Carper a little while back.
Mm-hmm.
My living room is an unofficial museum. So there are some places here that have little, the airport has the Southwest Terminal has a mural that's done by Solomon Thurman that includes African Americans in aviation and has a panel, actually 2 panels that are dedicated to St. Louis Airmen that have pictures of airmen, and it's on my back wall too. So we have some artwork that is dedicated. Wells Fargo has a conference room. We have a really good artist, William Curtis, who has done multiple panels in the St. Louis area. And that Freedom Flyer display has moved, came from Kokomo, Indiana, and it's going someplace else in the country and will be set up.
Okay, thank you.
Who's our next question?
I have a question.
Yes, Linda.
Yolandea, what got you interested in telling about the Tuskegee Flyers, and how broad has your explanation, your work been to promote them and to make the world aware of it?
Well, when at the Air Force Academy, I actually have the contrails, which was the little Air Force Bible that had facts on it. The only facts when I went to the Air Force Academy from 82 to 86 that mentioned the Tuskegee Airmen was the reference to one statue and the quote on it. It never said that the Air Force was segregated or mentioned the Tuskegee Airmen history at all. But at my first duty station in Grissom Air Force Base, Indiana, they were having a Black History event, and I thought there was going to be free food because lieutenants are motivated by food. At least I was. And I went there, and there was no food. But I met a lady named Faye McDaniels, who is the wife of an original Tuskegee Airman, Armin McDaniels. And she goes, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm the navigator." And she goes, "Well, do you know about the Tuskegee Airmen?" I'm like, "I saw your statue." And she goes, "Write me a check for $35. And as a good lieutenant, I wrote a check for $35. And back in 1986, I joined Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated. And I've been a member for the most part since 1986. So that's 40 years. At my first convention I attended, I went to a hospitality room, which I didn't know what they were either. And I met some Tuskegee Airmen and they said, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm the navigator." And the gentleman had not met any female flyers. At the time I was flying in the Air Force, there were 6 Black female navigators in the entirety of the Air Force. And we never really got above 6. before they started saying we don't need any navigators at all. And so they made me buy the book, which is on my shelf. I have multiple copies now. And they started signing it and autographing it. And so that's how I got introduced to them and got to go to the conventions and meet them and listen to them. This is a group of people that have been married, 40 or 50 years. And I would get to talk to them and saying, like, what's the secret of getting married? I never got to apply those secrets because I'm still single, you understand. But seeing an entire generation that had been married that long and showed that much support and love for each other provided a role model, not only for my military career, but for my dream marriage too. Back to you, Patty.
Okay, you told, I forget what the number class you were in of the females. So I know that it wasn't a regular field that Black females went into. So what drew you into the Air Force?
Oh, this is another embarrassing story.
Oh, we love to hear those.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you do. Many of you, have you ever heard of Francis the Talking Mule? Black and white movie. They would put peanut butter in it and the mule would talk. He visited West Point. Francis the Talking Mule visits West Point. I saw the movie. And I tried to send them my PSAT scores in middle school. And then by accident, I sent them at the wrong school. And then I had a family member says, why are you going to West Point? You should apply to the Air Force Academy. And as a young, I thought going to school was my job. So I did my homework and I got good grades. But my family wasn't rich enough to send me to college. And so I ended up going to the Air Force Academy. I applied to West Point, Coast Guard, and Air Force, and I ended up choosing the Air Force Academy. And at the Air Force Academy, they recognized GPA, athletics, and military persona. And if you were one of those with a 3.0 GPA, you got to wear something on your blouser. I soon learned that being a plane pocket was not somebody that I wanted to be. So in the Air Force, when I went in, only air crew members had something on their pocket. Now everybody's got a badge. But I wanted to ensure that I had a badge, and I was supposed to be a pilot, but I'm highly motivated and totally unskilled. So they said, you can't be a pilot, but you're smart enough to be a navigator. So that's what I did.
You still did it. You
Hey,
still
I got
did
it.
it. It doesn't
I got-
matter. You still did it, and you still are a grad of the United States Air Force Academy.
And I
College.
got flight pay. There's no difference between nav flight pay and pilot flight pay. So
That's great. That's great. So I have a question for you, Yo. So with all this direction, how has this influence of the Tuskegee Airmen influenced your life? Whether it was while you're in uniform or afterwards. Can you allude to that?
yes, that's an awesome question. One of the ways I can relate to the Tuskegee Airmen is the fact that they faced opposition and their performance helped them overcome. Because people said, you can't fly an airplane, you can't fix airplanes, you can't show up on time, you can't. And their response was, watch me. So when I went to the Air Force Academy, there were some challenges. And I had people who said, well, you can't graduate from here. And my response was, really? I'm just going to annoy you. Watch me graduate. And then the Air Force had some challenges. They're like, you want to leave? I'm like, no. I want to stay. I want to have you pay me retirement for the rest of my life. So when the going gets tough, sometimes it was good to have those examples, because when I raised it, I'm like, okay, let's put it in perspective. You're making my life a little bit like sandpaper underwear. However, just like the Tuskegee Airmen, I'm going to stay around just to show you that I can achieve. I hate when people say, you can't do this, Yolanda. Most annoying thing. I think everybody should hate that. Don't tell me I can't do it. Tell me the cost or the requirements, and then I will decide if I'm willing to put the work in. So the Tuskegee Airmen taught me that. Don't tell me I can't. Just tell me what's required. I'll tell you if I'm going to work on it. Just kidding.
That's very similar to those situations where if you're not required to report in, you just get the job done and do your best you can. And if they ask you questions, then you answer the question and drive on and keep going, right? All right, who's our next question? Oh, okay. Oh, from Eddie. Eddie says perseverance is the word that comes to mind from that.
That's a
So
very good.
yes, thank you, Eddie. Eddie, do you have a question for Yolandia? Oh, no.
Oh,
Okay. All right, who's our next question? We still have plenty of time. Cynthia?
Yolandia,
Yes,
you,
Patty.
this last year, you were gathering young people to be part of kind of like an introduction to the Air Force. Explain a little bit of how that went, and I know you were offering some scholarships for them. And so, how did that whole experience work?
ah,
And were you able to recruit some young people to go into the Air Force?
well, I want to tell you that there were civilians at Tuskegee. So
Yeah.
I want you to fly an airplane, not because I want to make you a pilot, but because I want you to be able to see that you can do that and you can do other things. So I'm also the director of the ACE Academy, which is nationwide. So if you're seeing this and you're going like, I have some child that's 13 to 18 years old, they should have participated in ACE Academy. They're usually day camps that are like 5 days long. At my camp, we flew multiple aerospace vehicles, paper airplanes, balsa wood airplanes, drones, simulators, styrofoam airplanes, gliders, and they flew in with the Young Eagles. They toured the tower, got to see how ATC trains. They went behind the scenes with Southwest Airlines. They saw a private airfield, a military airfield, and the commercial airfield. They got to meet FAA. So how great is that to
Yeah.
expand your youth mind? But the Tuskegee Airmen is also continuing the legacy and helping to eliminate some of the blocks for your kids to go to college. You do not have to be Black to apply for a Tuskegee Airman scholarship. You just have to know who we are. And so right now, that scholarship application is out there nationwide. You apply to the chapter that's closest to you. You can get anywhere from 1,500 to possibly 20,000, but they normally average around 1,500, 25, and 5,000. You don't ask for the 5,000. We determine who we're going to give the 5,000 to. However, to the people who applied for $1,500 scholarships, I've had a call and say, I have had sad news for you. You didn't get $1,500. We increased it to 5,000, the checks in the mail. Now, if you let your daughter use it for pizza, that's on you. But there are scholarships out there. There are opportunities. OBAP, Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, has drone classes. I teach a drone class. We have maintenance programs. There's aircraft availability. We partner with the Young Eagles and Wings of Hope. There are lots of opportunities out there in the St. Louis and probably in your neck of the woods. And they go empty because nobody applies for them. I have yet to fill my 30 slots for the ACE Academy, and I represent the bi-state region.
I know how that is. My son Noah is going to U of I in Chicago on the student of veteran waiver that U of I offers, and very, very few people actually put in for that. And whenever he was going through his scholarship night before he graduated, he was kind of off to the side and said Noah Scarborough's, a student of, or the that tuition waiver for 4 years at a U of I school. Everyone was going, what was that? And all that. Next week I was getting calls like, where did that come from? I mean, and I hope, maybe with this, we can actually, maybe increase awareness a little bit, because I mean, the sheer fact that the society is pursuing that and helping out everyone needs to know, because college is too damn expensive in some ways anyway. And That's wonderful
Yeah.
that you guys are doing that. That's fantastic.
Well, I assumed that it was for Black students only. So it's good to know that it's for anybody interested in Air Force, but would know
Not
those
even Air
that
Force. You go to the college of your choice and get that $1,500 to $5,000 on average.
really.
I have to tell you though that I'm the reason you have to write a 1-page essay,
Hmm.
3 paragraphs, on the Tuskegee Airmen, because the Tuskegee Airmen were going, why are we giving it to all Black folks? And I was saying,
Yeah.
we're not discriminating, guys. If they know who you are,
Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
going to get the money. So, and if you're in St. Louis and you get past me, last year I only sent 6 out of 10 applications forward. I mean, I had 10 slots. I only used 6. I
Yeah.
got only 7 applications. 5 of the 6 got money. So if you
Wow.
get past me, there's a good chance you're going to get money. But if I call you and ask you to fix something, ladies and gentlemen, scholarship graders do not normally call applicants, because if your application is not filled, it is easy to grade. If they call you, fix it. You're competitive.
And that's interesting too, because I have noticed that in the current pack of kids, as far as, say in the last 10 years with my children being in the age they are, that there are a few that really don't even desire to go out and search out the scholarships. They want to go to school. But, whether it's encouragement from parents, guidance counselors, whoever it might be, they're just not willing to go out and scoop it up, and that just limits their capabilities right there. Yeah, Patty.
Is it just for college or could it also be used for trade school?
Some of the It's got to be an accredited school, and
Yeah.
the funds for the Tuskegee Airmen Scholarship Foundation is always expanding to include more people. But our local chapter, Cargill, we provide scholarships. If you're going to an aviation or a trade school, we have money aside for those. But again, if you don't apply, we just keep it and let it grow interest. And here's another hit. Tell your children to write thank you letters with updates at the end of the year, and then calmly say, thank you for giving me money last year. Right now I have a 3.2 GPA. I was wondering, do you know of any other scholarships or grants that I can get? Sometimes the people who you say thank you says, well, last year we gave you 1,500, but we'll give you $500 right now to continue. But if you never ask, you never keep in touch, you take your money and run, you get nothing.
True. Very true. Yolanda, Cynthia's got a question. It's like, do you give presentations in other venues? She says, I know of a panel meeting next year with women in aeronautics. Are you
Yes, I do.
are you involved with that as well, or
I've spoken at Women in Aviation.
okay?
I can actually say I spoke overseas because I spoke in Italy twice at Campo Marino. The first time was slightly shorter because Italians know how to enjoy their conversations. And I was on the schedule at one time, and 3 to 4 hours later, I got to speak. But I spoke at one of the high schools. So I've spoken um, in multiple venues to multiple
Okay.
groups on the Tuskegee Airmen, on women in aviation, on African American history. I have 3.7 masters. One of them is in history. I say it's from African kings to Martin Luther King. One of them is in business, and one of them is in kinesiology. And then my 0.7 is a teaching certificate, not my GPA, but my certificate program.
Cool. You were speaking about your Italian trip for that. You were telling us that story before we actually went live. Can you tell that again for the whole audience?
I don't know exactly what I told you, but Daniel Kill, who's 102, 103 years old, was our Tuskegee Airman who went with us. We flew all the way to Rome and then took the train to Campo Marino, which is on the other coast. Campo Marino is where the Tuskegee Airmen were stationed with 4 other different units. For 1 month, unofficially, the Tuskegee Airmen flew an integrated unit. But once their base was established, they actually got segregated in Italy. But when we got to there in Campomarino, they're making a new museum, and they've got a really big mural in the center of their town honoring the Tuskegee Airmen. They were very appreciative of the Tuskegee Airmen and their ability to help free Italy and push back the Axis forces. So I got to speak twice there, which was
You know,
kind of
that's the whole connection of Italy and Sicily and Malta and all on how pivotal that was after campaigns in Africa was just that's some amazing heroism that happened there. A lot of hard fighting, for both us and the Brits and what have you. And it was definitely a change going from deserts to quasi-tropical and then going into Europe, that those are some amazing changes in terrain and temperature, firepower, what have you, and it's a wonderful thing. I don't know if you noticed it. I was trying to when I was trying to promote this, I put the flyer right next to a scene from the movie. So
and
what do you think about the movie
there are
that
two
they produce? Oh, there are two? Oh,
there are two major movies. The HBO movie with George Lucas took around 10 years to produce, and I got to see it when the world premiere. If you ever get to go to world premiere, go. Unfortunately, I don't drink, so I didn't get to take advantage of the open bar. But it was really impressive to be in the room with around 100 original Tuskegee Airmen because they showed it at the convention. What was funny about it is all the guys that were there watching the movie going like, we never broke radio silence. Benjamin O. Davis Jr. would have chewed us up if we broke radio silence. I'm like, you guys were 22 years old, 19, 20 years old. Are you telling me you shot somebody down and then you were like, and they're like, we were disciplined. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I will believe you. So I got to watch that movie. In that movie and the one that was made for the movie theaters, a lot of the activity was meshed into one or two people so that they could have a star versus multiple stars.
Mm.
So, for instance, one of the Tuskegee Airmen told me that while they were training, they had to do an out and back because of airplane issues. They landed at an unscheduled field, and you have to imagine a plane comes in at your unscheduled field. It's like, ooh, cool airplane. Everybody went out to look at it in the deep south, and this guy's wearing his scarf, his leather hat, his goggles. And they're like, aren't you a little hot? Don't you want to take off your gloves? Don't you want to take off your scarf? And,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually he would, and they would find out that a black man was flying that airplane. They didn't think was possible. And so they put him in a bread truck, closed, locked him in a room, fixed his airplane, eventually brought him back to the airplane and said, don't come back. In the movie, they didn't have that scene at an airport. They had it when they were flying and landed in front of a chain gang, because it's easier to make fun of chain gangs for being racist than military bases being lost.
Right.
So I got to see both of them. Both of them have this benefit. I like the HBO one more because you can cheer and boo at the appropriate times in that movie. The other one was a little bit more Hollywood. It has a love scene. But after going to Italy, you do realize that there was probably a little love going on.
One place or the other. Yeah, yeah. It did happen. Sandra, you only got one question in. What else you got to throw at Yolanda here?
Well, I actually want to turn back and say that the three words I was asking for to define the airmen apply so much to what I've felt from you in just the last hour. And I really like the third one that was recommended: tenacity, discipline, and perseverance. And that's how I would describe you.
Well, I thank you. That's one of the nicest compliment that I've received. in a while. My family would just call it stubbornness, but I like perseverance much better.
Well, all of us troublemakers, you know. What is is there a future for, or was there an end to the time of the Tuskegee Airmen? Did that come to a hard and fast stop, or is it going to go up? Is there something going on beyond what has already happened?
Well, right now, the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, which was started in the early 1970s with one chapter, now we're up to like 55, I think, chapters worldwide. We have one in Italy and one in Ghana. Puerto Rico has a chapter, but that's America, so I know that. We're trying to continue, we are continuing the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen by reaching the next generation with their stories. We are only tracking 13 original Tuskegee Airmen or World War II individuals. Out of the 1,000 pilots that were trained, less than half went overseas, and those which got the most attention are the ones that we just lost. George Hardy, which was the last combat pilot. But we're tracking 13 individuals, but their age is over 100 years old on average. So they, like the World War II generation, is dying, and our goal is to make sure that individuals remember the history, because as any historian will tell you, those who do not remember the history are doomed to repeat it.
Exactly. Of course, and a lot of people forget that at that time there was no Air Force. It was the U.S. Army Air Corps.
Right.
You know, I mean, shoot, I mean, we had only been what 30 years at that time at the most of having any type of combat aircraft of any configuration. True?
True. I mean, the first pilots would wave to each other.
Yeah.
Hi!
Oh, yeah.
And then they would throw bricks at each other. And then they try to shoot each other with handguns. And then they put a machine gun on their propeller that was made of wood. And before they got the synchronization right, they would shoot off their own propellers. And they're like, oh, this is not going to work.
Yeah, that's like a movie. Yeah, yep.
We've got
I
it.
can't imagine how many propellers and props were actually destroyed just to get the timing just right. That's, you know, that's something you don't hear about. You really, really don't. Okay, so we have 7 minutes left. Linda, any other questions from you?
Not a question, but a comment. I have learned a lot about the Air Force and about possibilities. When my daughter was in college, I tried to encourage her to join the Air Force ROTC. She thought about it a couple months, but did not follow through on that. Also, Yolanda, I understand you better now when I have knowledge about your growing up and your experiences, and you are an asset to the Toastmasters, and I appreciate all you do, especially tonight. This was a very interesting, informative session. Thank you for doing it.
Well, I thank you for your attendance and providing me feedback. And you can always find me through Tim and saying, well, you did this good and
Yeah.
fix
Oh, yeah.
this later.
That reminds me, speaking of the U.S. Army Air Corps, you are wearing something that's connected to the U.S. Army Air Corps on your lapel. So can you tell us about that? Because I'd have to go and dig mine out of a jewelry box, but if you could talk about the ruptured duck, that'd be great.
So when you retire from the Air Force, they give you a pin, and it's a pin that says, I served and retired honorably. In World War II, they gave you a pin, and it looks like a duck that exploded. Its nickname is Ruptured Duck. And one of the Tuskegee Airmen gave me their pin from World War II. So it is an actual World War II
Oh, wow.
Yoda pin. And for the longest time, I had it on the biggest cardboard that I could ever have, because I'm like, I do not want to lose this small little pin. So now it stays on this suit. This side is my Air Force active duty, my wings from aviation, my squadron pin and a pin that I got while I was in Italy. And this side is my current service. So it has my ruptured duck, my Tuskegee Airmen, and I got to meet a lot of women air pilot service, the WASP, and they flew interesting missions. And you're like, okay, they're women pilots. What did they do? They took airplanes from the factory and said, I hope it works. And they flew them to the bases. And then they had the job of, hi, I'm going to fly a target behind me so the people who are learning to shoot down airplanes can hopefully hit the target and not me.
Ooh, boy.
So a lot of props to the women air pilots.
I've never heard that before. That right there, more we need to know more about things like that because that's amazing. That's entirely different than being downrange on a rifle range and you're the one holding things up. That's crazy. We need more of that. That could be another speech. You can come in and do that and talking about those ladies. That would be great. All right, well, we're in our last couple of minutes before we end. I've got one more question. Who would like to offer it up to our speaker? Anyone? Cynthia, I know you're on chat. Do you have anything? Send me a message. I didn't know who logged in on the iPad. I never got your name.
Dwight Jones.
Oh, hey, Dwight, do you have a question for our speaker?
No, I've just been enjoying the presentation. No
Awesome.
question.
Awesome. Well, all right then. Well, okay, and I see you there. All right. Well, good. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it then. All right. Well, let's one more time. Let's give our just. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Cynthia says she said she appreciates you sharing the special history with us. She really appreciates all you've got. Again, I'm hoping and praying that the Facebook, like Zoom says it's streaming to Facebook. If I open up Facebook, it doesn't work. So we're gonna cross our fingers double side and hope for the best. So that way we all have content to look at. Let's give our celebrated speaker one more round of applause. Thank you so much for being part of this project here and to talk about this important part of American history. And if you could, can we conclude on the importance of heraldry when it comes to the military? Can you say something as a closing statement?
Really quick. So anytime we have a unit that excels, the flag, that banner for that unit sometimes can be retired like your favorite sports team number. The Tuskegee Airmen banners for the 100th, the 99th, the 332nd have been reborn after their World War II.
Oh,
And
wow.
some of them are in Balad and Iraq.
Cool.
They are now in, I think there's one in the Air National Guard, and there's other ones in the training base. So the T-7, which is Boeing is creating, which is the new T-7 Air Hawk, has got a red tail in homage to the Tuskegee Airmen. So those flags or those color choices that have a history behind them can be reborn, and there's a history behind it. So if you see an airplane and it's got a special tail, find out where that color came from and who they're representing, because it's just like your sports team. If you like St. Louis, you wear a cardinal. If you like the Tuskegee Airmen, you have a red tail.
Amen. That's just one more level of immortality, right? Definitely. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. In 2 weeks, we're going to be joined by Derek Zaborin. He is recently a TEDx speaker in St. Louis, and so we're looking forward to that. I've got to get his title. But thank you again, for giving everything to us. I am so happy to hear this finally because I've only got a little bit of your Tuskegee knowledge, in little bits and pieces. And thank you so much for being part of this.
Well, thank you for honoring it. You are a leader. Shoot, we've got a whole bunch of Toastmaster leadership here. So thank you
Yes.
for being the role
Yes.
model.
Yes. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful time. Thank you for giving my